is just list of cities, and is short equal to lambda name length of name. So just try to focus on the kind of structure it has. You just give the name, then you just give whatever this is. This can be anything. This is as simple as for I in names, right? So that I part, it can be anything. Similarly here, this name can be I as well, right? This is a kind of user defined name, or basically what you are defining, like basically a temporary name, you can call it. Okay, so this is what you are doing it here. Or if you just want to look at it quickly, you can also write for I in cities. You can write as cities length equal to blank list, and for I in cities, you can just do this cities length. Len is basically for length, and you can just append. What do I want to do? I just want to take length of I and I just want to append it inside, right? Now if I'll just try to look at it after it ran. So for each of these 6 cities, it is just giving me the length 13, 11, 7, 13, 6, 6, like that. Okay. So here what filter does is, let's first try to look at what filter does so that we'll be able to easily understand it. So I just press shift tab. So it takes a function or none here and whatever the iterable, in a similar way as map does, right? So in a similar way, returns an iterated yielding those items for which function is true. Okay. So in a way, if you look at map applies it on each of them, but what filter does is it only checks for which of them it is true. Okay. So yeah, what we are doing here is, I'll just put it here, short cities. So this list is just for creating it into a list format. I'm just printing and just filtering is short comma cities. Okay. So if I'll just run it like this, it'll look like this. But if I'll just put it in a list format, it'll print out different cities for which it is true. Okay. Cool. Now, yeah, here they just have done the same thing. Instead of this is short, which we have defined it here, they have just pasted it here. So let's also do that. Like this, and this prints these different cities. Okay, now let's look at generators. Okay, so generators is nothing, they're just using the while loop inside a function. So okay, let me just give this heading first. This heading, and this is just a for loop, and if you're trying to understand it, we're just trying to loop over it while I is less than x. Other than this, it will just try to keep adding it. So for I x in my range, first they are just defining my range and then they're just printing it. So let me just look at only this particular part. So here my range is getting defined. If I'll just try to look at what exactly is happening in this particular function. So right now it is just in this format. I mean, it is getting, it is a kind of a generator object, but I'll just try to put a for loop to print it. So first it has given the value of I equal to 0. Let's say if I give this value as 2, okay, while I is less than x, I just have to yield I then I have to do +1. So this is a very simple example, right? If I just try to put it here in this way, and let's try to understand only this particular part, then while 2 is less than 4, yield 2. So this is basically saying it is outside function. So yeah, it has to be used with def. But if we will even try to understand it here, what is happening, whatever value you give here, let's say you're giving 8, whenever I, or let's say 2 is less than 8, it will yield 2. Here it will just yield it. Then it will add 1 to this particular value. Okay. So, okay, it should be X here. Yeah. Now, if I just try to run it, I'll see only 2 and 3 is there because I gave the value of I as 2 here, right? So it printed out 2, then 2 plus 1 equal to 3, then it printed out 3. And for the next one, this condition will not get satisfied, right? So what is the difference that we see here? If we want a particular criteria, if we want a value only till a particular one, then we will put while. Let's say that you are using Selenium or when you use Selenium inside Python, then you basically load a particular page, right? Let's say you want to click on some kind of a load more or some kind of a reload option again and again. If you know, let's say after 6 particular times of reloading, you will get your desired result. So then that particular case, you will just use while. But let's say you have a list of items and for each of those items you want to load it, then you'll just put a for loop like this. Okay, cool. Okay, so in the same way that so this generator is basically, it generates different numbers of different numbers of whatever function that you put. So here we have put a for power function. All right. Now here is an example. In this particular example, the generator function works like a built-in function enumerate. Okay, and let's try to understand this. So it is taking like multiple arguments here. So if we'll just try to understand this, then so this is lessons is why Python program. Let me just shorten it. This is not visible properly. Yeah. So there are like 5 elements here, and let me again further break it. So these are just the 5 elements of it, and this is def until here. This function is there. Then from here, for loop is starting. So just new function is there, iterable. Whatever the iterable is there, I'll just give it here. Now iterable is basically this list, or I can just name it as let's say Q also. Okay, just to make it smaller. Start equals to 0. I equals to start. Okay, so this is just a condition that we have given here. Now for element in Q, it will yield this particular one and this particular element. Element will be this, right? Okay, there's a question. Sir, why yield function is used? So yield function is used to return a particular value. Okay, if I'll use return here, then it won't give me this particular part. Return, what return does is it just ends that particular function there itself. Okay, but I don't want that, so we can use yield. Okay, let's see if there is a separate doc string itself here for it, for a more accurate. Yeah, as a separate doc string is not there, but yeah, it basically just returns whatever values are at present at that moment in that function. Okay, so I'm just using for element in Q. So this element in Q. Now this value of Q, whatever list I'll have, I'll just give it whenever I'll just try to run this particular function. Okay. Okay, so here I'm just trying to run this function, and what is happening here is it is yielding I comma element, and then it is just adding 1 to it. So it will come back again here. Again, it will check it. This value will get checked here, and then again it will just keep on running. Okay. So lessons comma 1 is the value that I'm giving it here. I can make it 3 also. Then in that case, it will start from 3. So this is the starting value that I've given. It should print this format dot ilesson. Okay. So this particular form is called as string formatting. So let's first separately try to understand it. This is a list formatting. You can format it in the way that, let's say, if my age is this. Okay. So, or let's say that yeah, okay. So let's try to first understand the format thing, how it works. So whatever argument that you want to give in, if you want to make it kind of a dynamic, right? In that case, you use it. So if I just put a comma b here, sorry, let me just put a comma b. Okay, so it will, these values will basically get printed here. Okay, so in a case of multiple things, if you have to print it out here, right, in that case string formatting is used. So if I'll just put a and b directly here, then I won't be able to rewrite other things here, right? But if I'll just give values here of, let's say, I and j, and then I'll just try to iterate those values for particular list, like say I is getting iterated over here for this particular one, right? So in those cases string formatting is used. So we just use curly brackets. Here I just have just one, so I can just give one value and it will just give it minus HA. Cool. So what is happening here is, for I comma lesson, in my enumerate lessons comma 1. So this lessons is this value Q and the start is 1. And since two values are getting yielded from here, I and element, this I will be basically equal to this and this element will be equal to lesson. So this I and lesson, I'll just format it here and I'll just print it here. Okay, so I'll just run this and then run this. So lesson 1 this, lesson 2 this, 3, 4, 5. So in this way you can just print it out. Okay. There is another way of doing it. So let's say that I just put it as lesson number equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now I just write for I comma j in zip. So let's zip it. Lesson number comma this lessons, whatever lessons was. So let's print it here, and similarly lesson number, if I'll try to, okay, I'll just try to run it. Yeah, so this is my lesson number, this is my lessons. I'm just using zip function, and zip function is basically used to zip the objects. So it returns a zip object. It kind of returns a tuple where ith element comes from the ith iterable argument. Okay. To understand simple form, you can take two different lists and you can print for them corresponding values only. You don't have to print all the values. Okay. Sorry, this is, I'll just not doing J. So in this way also this is coming. This is also the same thing. This is also the same thing. Okay. So yeah, this is the general concept here. And similarly, if you have an iterable that is too large to fit in memory in full, chunks of it at a time can be variable, implementing a chunk. So it's kind of defining a chunker object, which will just give a specific size of this particular operator. So let's try to just understand this quickly. So let's try to split it into two parts. This for loop, we'll just put it separately. This for loop is simple. It is just printing out the list of this chunk, whatever it is getting created here. But let's try to understand this chunker object. It's taking two arguments. One is iterable, another one is size. So inside this, there is one more for loop. This is for I in range 0, comma length of iterable, comma size. Okay. It should yield iterable I comma I plus size. Okay. So let's say if we give the value of range 25 comma 4. So let's try to take a smaller value here so that we can understand it better. So this is range 10. If I'll just try to put for I in range 10 print I, then I'll just give a value from 0 to 9, right? Now what it is saying that this iterable is this range 10. Okay, I'll just replicate it so that we can understand it better. Yeah, this should be range 10, and this size it is giving it as 4. Okay, so for I in range 0 comma length of iterable, right? So whatever this iterable is there, if I'll just try to take length of it, it is 10 because there are 10 elements in it. So this is again 10, 4. For I in range 0 to 10 comma 4. Now this particular format, if we'll try to look at it, this particular format is start, split and step. Okay, so if I'll just try to print it, it'll go from 0, then it'll take a step of 4, it'll come to 4, it'll again take a step of 4, it'll come to 8, and then it can't go to 12 because the stop value is 10. Okay, so it should yield iterable I to I plus size. Okay, so what is my iterable? My iterable is this. It should return this, and this I comma I should be as it is, and this 4. Okay, now this I colon I is, let's try to understand this I, what this I is. This I is nothing but this 0, 4 and 8. So it should yield, first it should yield 0 to 0, 0 to 0, then plus 4 to it. So let's just try to take this part for the understanding purpose. It should give range 0 to 4. Okay, next it will take 4. It will give range 4 to 8. And then if I'll just give 8, it will give range 8 to 10. Okay. So now if I'll try to print this one, okay, I'll just try to run this. So what it is doing here is, this is taking this particular chunk, the chunk, and it is creating it into a list format. For this one, 0 till 4, then for this one, 4 till 7, and then this last one, 8 comma 9. So just repeating it four number of times. So it's just taking this particular iterable and it's just giving it the value from whatever value is there and whatever number of size is there. So it's just repeating it those number of times. All right. So the last one also should have been repeated for 4 number of times, but since there are only 2 values before 10, right? Before range 10, that's why it is just giving only 2 values here. So this is what it is doing. It's yielding a chunk of a specified size at a time. Okay, now here they are just creating list, assessing elements of the list. So this part we already seen. This is just a mixed list. Then this index 0 element, -1 element, and list of random things. So it's just taking length of this entire thing and just subtracting 1 from it. So that will be length of it is around 4. 4 minus 1, 3. So the last index element it is giving, the last element. Then this is the slicing part. This also you know. We just give a start and stop here. We give nothing in the starting, then everything from the starting will get printed. This list of random things. Then in, not in. So this is in, this is a string, then it will return true, it will return false. This is just for checking criteria. Now this is length of a list. This is a concept of my list, mutable and ordered. This is smallest and greatest element, how you can return in a list, minimum and maximum. Then for sorting a list, you can just use sort list of random things. So I can just take this and just write sorted A. Let me make it 11. Now if I run it, it will return from 2, 3, 4, 11. Okay. Cool. I think we can stop the session here for today. We'll continue from this join in the next session. Or actually, I'll just quickly tell this part as well so that we are covered with list at least. So if you just have two names and if you just want to add them together, then you can just use dot join. So if I just take this particular part and if I just print it like this, if I'm not giving any kind of an operator here, it will just join them. And if I'm giving a space, it will join them like this. This is the same thing that we did in the starting of the session, just creating a new list. And this is just appending the item. This also we did in the starting of the session, just appending using the append function. Then this is just modifying a new list. So this is cities, and for index in range length cities, the length of cities is 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. So for index in range 4, range 4 is 0, 1, 2, 3. So for index in 0, 1, 2, 3, cities 0 equal to cities 0 dot title. Okay. So if I just print it here, so it's just giving kind of a heading to it with the help of a title, this thing, right? So whatever function you want to put it here, you can put it. It can become upper also. So this way you can just modify it. This, in this particular part, you're just printing a formatted string from parameters in list. So you're using this as a format item. So this is more of related to HTML. But yeah, this is just using a normal for loop only and the combination of format with it. And if you just want to convert any attribute to a list, you can just use this list function. Like this is a tuple. If you just want to convert to a list, you can just use list. Similarly, this is already a list. You can just convert it again. Okay. So if there are not any further questions, we can end the session and you guys can join back again for the SQL session at 6:30.